I've made my styles. Here's how my list of deals looks like right now. So I've just added some margins around every deal and make it into a box, made the title of every deal a little bit bigger and bolder, and align the cause and the price under the title in one row. You can check the GitHub repository for this movie to see the list of styles that I've used to do all that. Let's do the important part now, and the challenging part. When we tap on a deal, we want to go to a different view that displays more details about every deal. This means we want to define a press event on every deal. And that's going to be for the whole deal. So if I press anywhere inside this box of the deal, it takes me to that deal detail view. So I'm going to start the deal detail view by duplicating this deal item component. So duplicate deal item as deal detail. And the deal detail, we'll keep it exactly as is at first. We'll just rename the component into deal detail. And I'll just put a placeholder text item in here to identify this as the details of a single deal. Inside the deal item component, which is what's displaying this box in here, I want to make this whole thing a touchable component. So instead of view here, I'll use touchable opacity. And I'll include touchable opacity from React Native just like that. And now I can define an onPress event on this touchable opacity. So what's going to happen when I press on this deal box? Let's go ahead and put that inside a function in here. We'll call it handle press format. And we'll define handle press right here. Handle press is going to be a function that is going to do something. What is it going to do? We basically want React Native to re-render the view when we touch on a deal and render the deal detail view instead of the deal list. So rendering of the deal list happen here in the top level app component. If we have a list of deals, we are rendering the list of deals. Now we have another condition. We're going to have to put something on the state to make React re-render itself and display a different view. So I'll call this current deal ID. And this starts with null. So basically, when I don't have a current deal ID, the view is going to just render the list. If I have a current deal ID, I'll make React render the deal detail component for that deal ID. So we can create a function right here, call this function setCurrentDeal. This function will receive a deal ID, and it will change the state to make that deal ID as the current deal ID. So we'll do a setState call, and we'll just make the current deal ID the deal ID that we are receiving as an argument to this function. We can simplify setState here as well to make it just an object. And now I need to pass this setCurrentDeal down and flow it to the deal list component to define it as the behavior for every item press. So we'll call this onItemPress, and we'll pass it as this.setCurrentDeal. So now the deal list component receive a new property. We name that property onItemPress. This is a prop types.function. It's required. And we want to flow this behavior down to the deal item component as well. So we'll call it onPress here. And this would be this.props.onItemPress. Let me format. Perfect. Inside the deal item component, this receives an onPress function. So it's a prop types.function, also required. And the handle press is going to invoke this.props.onPress and call it with the ID of the deal, which is available from the API as this.props.deal.key. The ID of every deal is named as key in the API. So now to complete this feature in the app component, we need to add another conditional. And I'll refactor this ternary here to make it more clear. Basically, let's do multiple if statements here. If we have a current deal, so if this.state.currentDealID, if that exists, we're going to return the deal detail view for that deal. And we'll need to figure out what to pass this component. But let me continue on these if statements. If I have a list of deals on the state, so if this .state.deals.length is greater than 0, then we'll go ahead and return what we're returning here, which is the deal list. And otherwise, we'll just return the text, just like that. I don't need else statements here because I'm returning early from the render component. Okay, so what does this deal detail component need to render itself? It needs a deal item. So we'll need to figure out what deal to pass to the deal detail in this case. So I'll go ahead and define that in a function as well. I'll call this function current deal. So current deal is going to figure out what deal to pass to the deal detail component. Current deal is a function, doesn't receive anything. It will return the current deal that needs to be rendered in the deal detail component. And it can do that by finding the deal from the list of deals that we have on the state. So it will return. We'll start from this .state.deals, and we'll do a find call here. And basically, this find call is going to give me a deal every time. And I would like to return if this deal.key equal to the current deal that we have on the state. So this .state.current deal ID. If that condition is true, it will return that deal to be rendered in the deal detail component. I think we can test. Let me just format everything. And we need deal detail. So let's import that. We're importing deal detail from deal detail. And let's test. Refresh. So the deals are still rendering. So this if statement is now the active one. And when I press on a deal, I'm going to press on this website package deal. This if statement is going to take over, and it will render that deal on its own using the new deal detail component that we're going to modify now. Let me fix the styling a little bit here in deal detail. We'll go with margin top. Instead of 12, we'll do 50. This looks okay. So now we need to make this deal detail component render more information about this deal. And we'll need an AJAX request to go fetch more information about that deal because the initial list of deals that we fetch doesn't have that information per deal. When we ask the API for information about a single deal, it will give us back the images and the title and the cause and the price. So all this information is going to come back from the API. But I don't want to React to re-render this information. I already have that information. I'd like React to re-render the extra information that we fetch from the server. So to make that clear, in the app component, I'll call this property initial deal data, because this is just part of the data that I'd like this component to render. And in the deal detail component, instead of reading the deal directly from the props, I'm going to put the deal information on the state and do an AJAX call to change that state. So let's introduce a state object. And in here, we'll define the deal. This deal starts out as this .probs.initial deal data. Initial deal data is now the prop that I receive as the deal detail component. And instead of reading the deal from the props here, we want to read it out of the state, just like that. So now this deal detail component is ready to fetch more information for every deal, place that information right on the state, and use that to re-render this extra information under the initial information that we have for every deal.